Hey there, YouTubers. It's Gus Estacio back at it again. Healing X Outreach with another Christmas tidbit. We're going to probably have one more. And today we're dealing with the date and the weather. And I'm here waiting for my passenger, so I have a little bit of time. So Genesis chapter 31, I believe it's verse 40. For those of the Jehovah Witness type mentality that, Jesus could not have been born in the winter because the shepherds were out, flocks were out at night. The fact is, a couple things to think about. One, if you go to Israel's tourism website, in December, they'll tell you the most you'll need is a light jacket. Probably the coldest it gets is about 50 degrees. Secondly, it's a desert, so it's not going to get that cold. It's not like, up here in the north. It's not going to get 30 degrees. It's not going to get 40 degrees. If you do get any kind of snow, it'll be on more elevated areas. And here is an example of that. Jacob, in the book of Genesis, used to tend to flocks, and they lived in tents. So they're here, just imagine, they're living in tents. It's not going to be like really cold. Even though you can live fine in a tent in cold weather, but you got to have a couple of other things to keep you warm. So anyway, he mentions the fact that he was doing the shepherding for Laban, his uncle, and he says, look, I did this in all types of weather. And I should be treated a lot better because of the sacrifices I made. And that's basically the synopsis of this. It's in Genesis 31, verse 40. There I was in the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. So he goes on to say, if I did lose sheep to wolves, it was a very rare thing, but I did my job well. So this whole idea about winter. And so early Christians actually came to a conclusion of two possible dates for Jesus' birth. And we don't know for sure, but we just know this is the two possible dates that the early Christians came to a conclusion. How early? We're talking about late 2nd century, early 3rd century. And they are looking for a bunch of feast days, because the Jews have feast days to their prophet Moses about their deliverance, about their salvation. And so they're looking for similar holy days to have for their prophet. Now, the other argument a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses give is if it's not endorsed in the 1st century, then it's not Christian. Well, baloney. Who made the rule that you can't have new feast days or new holy days dedicated to Jesus Christ? There's no rule in that, in the Bible saying that you can't do it. But so this is how we get to December 25th, and the other date is January 6th, and they're actually associated. And many of you might not even know about January 6th. January 6th in many Christian churches is called Holy Epiphany. It's often the celebration of his baptism, but there are churches who celebrate the day of his birth, and they call it Holy Theophany. And theophany means God appears. And of course, the celebration of Christmas, or the Feast of the Nativity, which is what it was initially called, the birth of Christ is all about God appearing in human flesh. And so that theme is probably the dominant theme, and why the real issue why Jehovah's Witnesses are anti-Christmas is because, if you start celebrating Christmas, then you're celebrating the incarnation of God in human flesh, and they are anti-Trinity, and they don't believe Jesus is anything but an angel. But I don't think that's been an issue amongst Unitarian churches. They still have Christmas. But I guess against Unitarian cults, that would be an issue. So, how do we get to December 25th? Well, the early Christians were following a Jewish practice that the day that a prophet is conceived is the day that he died. And we know that Jesus died in the spring. But there were also other scriptural factors into choosing the dates of Jesus' birth and why they believed that these are valid dates. Now, I can't say with 100% surety that these are valid dates, but all I can say is with 100% surety, these are the reasons why early Christians chose these dates, January 6th and December 25th. And so it starts with the Gospel of Luke. So let's go to the Gospel of Luke. And Luke chapter 1, it starts out with the birth of John. So, John is the forerunner of Jesus even in the womb. And John is Jesus' cousin. Zacharias was the priest, and his wife was Elizabeth, and she was an old woman. And it was his time to go ahead and serve in the temple. And it is believed that this was the feast of Yom Kippur. And I believe it's because this text cross-references with, I believe it is Leviticus chapter 16, I think it's verse 11. So anyway, so this is where it says he goes into the temple and he's going there, but they had no child because Elizabeth was barren and they were both well advanced in years. Verse 7, Luke 1:7. So it was that while he was serving as priest before God in the order of his division, according to the custom of the priesthood, his lot fell to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. So he goes into this temple. The angel Gabriel appears to him before the altar of incense, tells him, look, your wife is pregnant. And he's like, you got to be kidding me, she's old. And because he doubted the angel, he is muted. So Yom Kippur normally takes place around mid to late September to early to mid-October, depending on the lunar calendar. In 2012, Yom Kippur fell on September 25th, 2012. So it is believed that this may have happened September 25th or October 6th. Now, what does that has a lot to do with December 25th and January 6th, and you'll find out in a minute. So, when you go on and you're reading the chapter, and I think that's an ambulance coming by. And so, it's an ambulance coming by. You get to chapter 1 and verse 25. And this is in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, which also coincides with what I said earlier. Jesus died in the spring. They believe that a prophet who is conceived, the day that he is conceived is the day that he dies. Not to say that that's true, but this was the Jewish belief. And so 6 months from September 25th, you come with March 25th. And this is the scripture. Verse 28 says, 26, now in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The 6th month from when? Well, it also tells us. That's in verse 26, verse 36. Tells us what that 6th month is. Now indeed Elizabeth, your relative, has also conceived a son in her old age, and this is now the 6th month for her. So 6 months Elizabeth has been pregnant. That's how we get with March 25th or April 6th. Ironically, or not ironically, planned actually, there are Christians that celebrate in March 25th what is called the Annunciation of Mary, which means the announcement. Mary's announcement that she was gonna have a baby by the angel Gabriel, which is what's taking place here. There are also Christians that celebrate it in April 6th, depending on the calendar. You have what we have: Western Christianity or Catholic Christianity, March 25th, the Annunciation of Mary; Eastern Christianity or Orthodox Christianity in April 6th. 9 months from March 25th. Well, actually, 9 months from Elizabeth's pregnant. Elizabeth has John sometime in June and July, either June 25th or July 6th. 9 months, though, for Mary, from March 25th or April 6th. And what do you have? You have December 25th and January 6th. Why does 9 months matter? Because a woman carries a baby for 9 months. And so it is believed, at least from Christians, that this is the reason, not because of paganism or some other holiday. This is how they arrived at December 25th. And to associate December 25th as a paganized version of Christianity, or Christians were borrowing, it's bunk, it's baloney. First of all, Saturnalia, that his birth or his feast day never falls on the 25th. Sol Invictus does fall on the 25th, but it was pushed to that after the Christians had already chosen that date. And as I said, they chose that date for these reasons. And if you have to demonize December 25th as a Christian compromise of paganism, then you have to do it with January 6th also, because once again, they celebrate the feast day or the birth of Christ on December 25th and January 6th. They're associated together. And you know how they're associated together? It's funny, as we say this all the time, but evangelicals have lost their sense of history. And for years and years, for 1,500 years, Christians did these things as a means to remember. They have trees, they have things. These are all things to tell us the story of Jesus, or tell us the gospel story, or tell us a story of an ancient Christian, anything. These are all symbols and pictures and means to tell the story. Well, December 25th to January 6th is 12 days. It is popularly known in the song, the 12 Days of Christmas. And so the 12 Days of Christmas is celebrating the bookend days of what Christians believe to have been the day that Jesus was born, December 25th or January 6th, the Feast of the Nativity and Holy Theophany. And so that is the reason for the season. Jesus' birth on December 25th and January 6th. It has nothing to do with paganism. It has actually to do with the pregnancies as outlined in Luke chapter 1. And yes, the weather was permissible for shepherds to have their sheep. By the way, sheep have nice fat coats in the winter, so they have no problem with the weather. And that's the whole reason why shepherds graze sheep, is because we shear them so that we can have nice fat coats in the winter, so that we can keep warm with sheep's wool. So the whole argument actually collapses on itself. With that being said, the next one I'm going to do is on the name Christmas. Where do we get the name Christmas? Merry Christmas to you all. God bless. Bye-bye.